I'm all in. You know, you can ask my colleague Chris Mason. I've been saying it. Chad Ryland's hitting at least a 60-yard field goal in Denver. He has the leg strength. He has the power. The guy has to work in his accuracy. We've all seen it all year. You know what? I just hope they give him the chance. Like,
wait,
you draft him for a reason, right?
Let's not make the 67. Let's go 70. Why do we need to stop at 67?
Get some wind. Get some wind. I saw Stephen Gostkowski hit, I think it was a 61-yard field goal in Mexico City. Chad Ryland in Denver, absolutely. 60-plus, he's got it. Let's go. It'd be the best storyline on Christmas Eve ever. Great little Christmas present there under the tree. A Chad Ryland, you know, NFL record-breaking kick after Deflategate Part 2. I love it. I'm all in.
Hell yeah. All right, recording here Friday morning. A happy holidays and a Merry Christmas to you and yours. Patriots kicking off against Denver. This is going to be a shorter preview episode than normal because we have the ghosts of Patriots scandals past up here as we all deal with the ghosts of Christmas past. Mark Daniels of MassLive, I would say the most, if not as more, a dogged reporters you will find on the Patriots beat, and had a story out this week that made headlines nationally about underinflated footballs in the Patriots-Chiefs game in the first half. They were remedied afterward. Mark, the first thought I had were not three letters for PSI, but more WTF as we went along with this story. How has life been for you since you brought Deflategate back into all of our lives? And an excellent report, by the way. Like, this was very well put together. All of that needs to be said in the front end. It's not any kind of lip service. Like, this is a great report, a very good story.
Man, my emails have been full of people yelling at me for putting pounds in there. Like, I put like 11 pounds, 13 and a half pounds, because that's what the NFL rulebook actually says in terms of the weight of the balls. It says 12 and a half pounds to 13 and a half pounds. That's how I wrote it. People got mad. I changed it to pounds per square inch. Other people got mad that I didn't put ounces. And then I started changing it to PSI. Then I'm like, I've spent way too much time, and people have spent way too much time yelling at me for how I basically wrote about the weight of the actual footballs. That was the first thing. It's like, man, I'm getting PTSD from almost 10 years ago. It's wild to think that was the 2014 AFC Championship game when it started. That was technically early 2015. We're getting on like the 10-year point. And there are still people who sort of forget that when I say like 11 and a half pounds, we're talking about pounds per square inch, ounces, PSI, whatever have you. People are like, oh, the balls are 11 pounds. That's why Mac Jones can't throw it. And I'm like, no, we're doing this again, man. It feels like it was yesterday, man. But when that came out, the amount of reaction I got to it was like, wow, there are a lot of people who forget. There are some people who forget, and clearly some people who did not, because, Bob Kravitz is commenting, my man Jeff Howe is commenting. People are like, oh, not again, not the ideal gas law. I just remember covering that story. It was my first year on the beat, first time covering a Super Bowl, and I spent hours and days researching how footballs were made. Like, I spent so much time learning about pig bladders and football bladders and, what really went into it. It brought up some bad memories, but I would say this, the fact that it's been 10 years and something happened again, but it probably wasn't the Patriots' fault. That's also, I'd say, noteworthy.
Yes. And let's just read from the story, because you can't beat, the original primary source here. And so what you wrote early in this story is, quote, the underinflated footballs didn't travel as well in the Foxboro weather on Sunday. And sources indicated that's why Patriots kicker Chad Ryland and Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker missed field goals in the first half. Sources noted that the footballs traveled farther in the second half once inflated to proper 13.5 PSI. Now I'm wondering if that was pounds originally or pounds per square inch. Quote, they were all sitting around at 11 PSI. The threshold is usually 13.5, a source told MassLive. The Patriots told the refs that they were a little underinflated, or they felt that way. At halftime, they confirmed and obviously put air in them. So, the first tip was not even a field goal attempt. It was the kickoff, right, to start that game, where Harrison Butker is clearing a touchback 87.1% of the time going into that game, and then misses a field goal for the first time all year. And then Chad Ryland obviously misses, which is becoming more of a common occurrence. I don't really want to rehash the rest of that game. We all saw it. We know what happened. But what, if anything, have you learned since you published, besides that folks have totally forgotten how science works and that we all went through this 10 years ago? Just remember, so we don't have to do it again.
So there's two things. I had one source tell me something interesting, that post-Deflategate and up to 2020, referees are extremely diligent with the PSI and the balls. Like, players noticed a difference with how officials handled the game balls, and that they were, and the way the measurements happened were a lot more open. I think back in the day, frankly, people skirted over it and officials didn't pay much attention to it. That changed after, the NFL spent millions of dollars to essentially suspend Tom Brady. But I was told since COVID, this one source said it has been a little bit more lax. Because my question was, how does this happen in 2023, especially at Gillette Stadium where, Deflategate started? And the source told me, well, you know what? Things have changed a little bit since 2020. He felt like it's sort of gone back to the original way. Or like, it's not as laxed. It's people aren't as essentially seeing the referees as much, even deal or talk about the PSI. So that was at least one source's thought on how could this happen? Well, maybe the NFL doesn't care as much, which is one. The second is, I thought what Harrison Butker said to the Chiefs media on Thursday was interesting. It was, quote, "I made a lot of big kicks with flatter balls." He essentially said he thought it was his technique for the reason why he missed. Butker did note, though, that the officials confirmed to him at halftime the balls were underinflated. They reinflated it, and he noticed a difference on his first kickoff in the second half as well. So I think Butker's explanation is very different from how the Patriots special teamers were feeling, because from what I was told by three sources, Patriots were livid. And part of it isn't so much the outcome of the game, but more on Chad Ryland. Chad Ryland's a good kid. He's very popular. He's very nice for anyone who meets him. His miss, from my understanding, when he kicked the ball, he thought it was going in. He thought he did everything right. His mechanics were perfect, and he was shocked that it was so far wide left. And from what I gather, when the ball is so underinflated, essentially the football wraps around the kicker's foot, and it changes the trajectory as they're swinging, essentially. So that's why they want the ball pumped up, because the pig bladder, the football bladder, doesn't wrap around your foot. The PSI is hard. It makes a hard football. So post-game, I noticed a lot of Patriots special teamers were angry. I heard, some swear words thrown out there, and it really made me track this story down. But from what I gathered, Patriots really thought Chad Ryland missed that kick due to the underinflated ball. Here, Harrison Butker, though, a veteran, an established veteran, doesn't blame it. And, again, he said, I've made a lot of kicks with flatter balls, and talked about how in college the balls weren't inflated. So I think what you see there is just the confidence level right now sort of teetering. You got one guy who's really established. You got another guy, Chad Ryland, who isn't. And I think the anger from the Patriots' point of view was on about Chad. Like, hey, this kid has had a lot of people on him for good reason, because he's missed a lot of big kicks, and something happened that was out of his control. And that's really where the anger from the Patriots part came from.
And I think that's probably a microcosm of the season, right? Like, everything is amplified now because nothing has gone their way. And so the smallest bit of inconvenience or adversity or underinflated balls, which affects their performance, gets, this is blown out of proportion yet again. Like, first of all, I'm just laughing because it's like, maybe the NFL shouldn't care. It doesn't care because it shouldn't, because this is not a big deal. But also, we're just saying phrases like, he's kicked flatter balls before, which we just should have sink and laugh at because it's funny. As far, though, as the frustration goes, like, it is understandable. And, I'd heard that they are very supportive and stand by Chad Ryland in a way most teams would not stand by a guy who's, I think, 12 of 19 or was after missing that field goal this year. And it's not just the draft equity they invested in him, obviously trading up to go get him. It's because of the talent. He's a rookie. And, they still believe in him from a preparation standpoint that he would make it. Whether or not he makes that first kick, if the ball's properly inflated or not, who knows? I am just so glad, for my sake, for your sake, for fans' sake, that they both missed a field goal. So this was like wiped clean, even, no really big issues. But what else before we move on to Denver, which now has me thinking of overinflated balls and thin air and what that might look like. But enough talk about balls. What are your remaining takeaways or greatest fascinations with this as we eventually kind of move on? What was the biggest story of the week?
You know what I learned? I didn't realize this, which actually makes sense. They clock hang time with everything on the sidelines, and they knew as the first half went on something was off because the hang time on everything was off, which I just, as a football nerd who actually enjoys the kicking game, I actually found it interesting that, wow, they had someone there with a stopwatch clocking every single kickoff and every single punt, and they said, hey, something's weird here. And I'm like, oh, it makes sense. It's the NFL. It's $1 billion industry, but the fact that people still clock hang times on the sideline kind of made me happy a little bit. But I don't know, man. At the end of the day, it's wild to me that this could happen inside Gillette Stadium, where Bob McNally and John Jastrzemski were generally more aware something was happening, and the thing brought up a lot of old memories for me. It was wild, and the people who I talked to were just, just say, like, one person was like, basically called it a clown show. Like, it's the NFL, it's $1 billion industry. Deflategate happened, Tom Brady got suspended, and almost 10 years later, it seems like the officials did not properly inflate the kicking balls before the start of a Patriots-Chiefs game. Just wild that would even occur.
Yeah, and I obviously the Patriots attachment, the history is what makes this story, right? This happens against Chargers, Packers, whatever. No one really cares. It's like, that was a bummer. Shouldn't happen. Like, snafu, slap on the wrist for the refs, and everyone moves on. We cannot move on here in New England about anything. We hold grudges. We get upset, and rightfully so, over all of that stuff. Because as you mentioned, millions and millions and millions of dollars to suspend Tom Brady over something that was just ridiculous. And it's funny, when you mentioned hang time and clocking that, making it smile, I just was thinking of Alex Barth, mutual friend, 98.5 The Sports of Alex Barth, right. King of the stopwatch, at least in training camp and hang times. I'm sure he would have been beaming. He also noted, and maybe you did in your story and I've just forgotten, the weather from a temperature and humidity standpoint on last Sunday was almost identical to the temperature humidity of the 2014 AFC Championship game. And maybe it was the weather after all, as we all probably know.
That would put the NFL in a tough spot, right? To admit the weather actually changed the PSI of the footballs in the game.
Well, we know the NFL is not going to do that.
Maybe that's why they haven't responded to my inquiry. That to boil it down, I had one source tell me I went to the NFL. They didn't get back to me. Then I had two more. So at the end, when I had three telling me the same story, I went with it. But still, no word from the NFL. So radio silence there.
Makes sense.
So it used to be that the Patriots played their best football after Thanksgiving. Well, I'm here to tell you we don't have to wait for turkey and mashed potatoes and football for you to win and place your best bets of the year with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 with a single bet if the team that you pick wins. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, I'm telling you, there's no better time than now to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. I do it all the time. There's a wide range of options, too. If you don't like betting options like the money line, that's for me. If it's not for you, go for point spreads, player props, over-unders, and tons more. Just visit FanDuel.com/Boston and get your winning in the NFL season, no matter what the Patriots do. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
All right, let's move on. Broncos Patriots Sunday night, 8:15 kick in Denver. Patriots are about 6.5, 7-point underdogs going to play the Broncos, who are 7-7. Here are their last four. A 42-17 ass kicking at Detroit. Big loss to the Lions. Before that, they beat the Chargers 24-7 in Los Angeles. Lost to Houston 22-17 at Houston, and then a win over Cleveland at home 29-12. This was a Broncos team that started 1-5. Everyone clowned them as a clown show for losing by 50 points, 70-20 to Miami. But Sean Payton has turned this around, and what they've done is really just win a lot of these close games, which is not indicative often of much aside from, a good bounce here or turnover luck over there. And turnovers, as far as I can tell, have really driven this defense back. I mean, they are playing better. They are still rank 32nd against the run by DVOA, 30th overall. Their EPA numbers are bad. But when you make the cutoff week 7, again, when they start to turn things around, and you could do this with arbitrary endpoints, even the Patriots look good if you just take the middle chunk of their season and their offense. They're not. But the Broncos are about a middle-of-the-pack team in about every respect since then. I think it speaks to good coaching, and I look at when the Patriots have the ball, because their success rate, as far as defending the run, even from week 7 on, is still bottom 5 in the league. Teams are staying on schedule when they run. That's what the Patriots want to do. Am I crazy, Mark? First of all, yes. Am I crazy to think, though, that this might be a decent matchup because of that run defense that's just,
You know what? You're not. I actually pinpointed this game as a potential upset in the Patriots' favor. And the reason was, what surprises me about the Broncos this year, they've actually been better at running the ball than passing. I looked it up. Like, the Broncos are averaging 187 passing yards per game, which is just surprisingly low. It's 25th in the NFL. And their run game is 112 a game, which is 14th. Denver has been a better run game offense than pass game. And the star attraction is Russell Wilson. And you have Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. Like, he's not void of talent there that he's throwing to. But the fact that it seems like they run the ball better, 100% plays into the Patriots' hands, because they enter this game, I want to say, ranked first in the NFL in yards per carry, and they're second in the NFL in the rushing yards they allowed per game. I think it's like 87 or something ridiculous like that. So you have a Patriots defense that is outstanding, elite against the run, against the Broncos offense, that their run game is better than their pass game. So, yeah, I think in a lot of ways this game could play into the Patriots' hands.
Now, when the ball is in the Patriots' hands, and it's more specifically in Bailey Zappe's hands, I think everyone's going to kick back, have a beer, relax, and feel good in the first half. Then halftime will hit, and regardless of the score, everyone's going to have the same feelings that we did in a much lesser sense about Deflategate 10 years later with your story. When they see the second half and Bailey Zappe take over, it's a little PTSD from last week against the Chiefs when his passer rating was 8.68 in the second half, to Pittsburgh when he throws one pick and Bill O'Brien's like, nah, we're pulling you back, and this is it. We're going to run the ball. We got to lead. We're just going to sit on it. We're going to let the air out of the football. Pun intended. And we talked to Bailey this week, who was open about, my first half, second half splits are bad. And I have some thoughts on this. I've said them before in this podcast, but when you look at him and specifically that divide, how do the Patriots get first half Bailey Zappe to play like that in the second half?
It's wild to me. And here's a wild number that I sort of looked up. I love stats and splits. When Bailey Zappe has under 2.5 seconds to throw, his passer rating is 95. When he has over 2.5, it drops to 39, which actually makes no sense. The longer time you give Bailey Zappe to throw, the less likely it is that he does something well, which defies logic for me. So what Bailey said on Wednesday was essentially he has to operate Bill O'Brien's offense like he was taught. You go through your reads and you make a quick decision. I think that's what he has to do. I think he's at his best when he makes a quick decision and he identifies the first or second read and gets rid of the ball. Because when he's dancing around and waiting too long, statistically, those numbers dramatically fall off. Like, again, over 2.5 seconds, he has 1 touchdown and 4 picks. Under 2.5, he has 3 touchdowns and no picks. That makes no sense, but I think what it says is he's good when you give him less choice. Like, I think that's why he actually looked a little bit better in Matt Patricia's offense, because he was being told exactly what to do. He wasn't really making checks or lines, at the line of scrimmage. He was just doing what Matty P and Joe Judge wanted. This year with Bill O'Brien, as you know, the offense is predicated on quarterbacks making different checks and changing things to the line of scrimmage. You have option routes. Zappe, I think you need to dumb it down. I think he has to, get your read or throw it away. Like, it just that just stuck out to me as being very bizarre and maybe also a bit noteworthy on, where his football IQ is compared to some other quarterbacks like Mac Jones.
It's a great point, and I think it's spot on as far as speaking to any backup, right? Like, your job at that point is to not be a player on your own in a way that drives winning individually. Your job is to be a cog in the system, which he was talking about, and make everything else go. Whereas we look at the quarterbacks, Russell Wilson once upon a time, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen. They are the engine. They are the system that makes everything go. No. Bailey, sit back. If it's not there, throw it away. And I think, the turnovers factor big into that, right? Because as I've noted, and he didn't feel this way. So I want to put that on the record that Bailey doesn't think his leash gets shorter after these interceptions. But just look at the play calling. Like, the run pass split should not be so severe after the turnover if Bill O'Brien is not pulling the leash back and going, we're just going to sit on it, because that's how it looks. That's what's happened. And not only just in Pittsburgh when they had a lead, but trailing against Kansas City. And Bill O'Brien's like, we're down 14, but we're going to take our time. And so it is about the system, obviously avoiding turnovers. And I think he's had fewer boneheaded decisions and mistakes than Mac Jones had. But the ones that he does commit seem to slow the machine down in a way that he just needs to get everything on schedule, because this is also a game, they scored 20 points. You might come out of there with an upset on Sunday.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Even looking at the Denver defensive rankings is interesting, because their rushing defense, as you said, has been horrible. 32nd in the NFL. They're allowing 146 rushing yards per game. But even their pass defense, 23rd. The Denver defense really isn't that good. So for the Patriots, and I think in this game in general, the first team to 20 might win. But this has to be a huge like Zeke Elliott game, and I think that's where they can sort of help Bailey Zappi, right? Because you look at what Zeke and the run game did against Chiefs, it was really non-existent. The Patriots lost up front, which is not an unusual story of this season. But I think Zeke averaged somewhere around 2 yards per carry. I think he rushed for under 30 yards. Like, you can't have that. You need to establish the run, probably play ahead, and you could come out of Denver with a win. It's not inconceivable. I don't think Patriots fans would be happy about that. I mean, frankly, it's weird to be talking about. The worst thing that could happen is the Patriots win, and they get a worse draft pick, which is just a strange existence to live in here in New England.
Yeah, and that's where we've been. I don't know how many weeks now. Like, it's tough. But hey, we're almost there. Holidays are coming. Let's go on to defense, where the Patriots are very good, and we'll face, as you mentioned, Russell Wilson, who has not been the player he once was for years, but has come around with Sean Payton. I think it honestly speaks to just what we talked about with Bailey Zappi. Fit in the system. Make everything go. Don't try to be the player that you were, because his athleticism has waned. Though, as Belichick noted today, and this forced me to dive into my own look as far as statistically at the Broncos, Russell Wilson is their second leading rusher technically, but he's rushed for more touchdowns and first downs than anyone else on the roster. And I get Javonte Williams has not had a great season, yada, yada, if you know in fantasy, like, it's been bad. But that's the key to me, whether designed runs or scrambling, where I look at this and go, keep him in the pocket. And that's not the ball game, but given how much of their important plays, first downs and touchdowns, that are coming just from him holding onto the ball, keeping him behind the line of scrimmage is more important in a way, even if he's less athletic, because that's where they're getting a lot of their offense.
Yeah. The Denver, like, the metrics for the Denver offense are just honestly like 2022 Patriots bad. Red zone, they're 20 red zone. They're converting their red zone opportunities 50% of the time, which is 22nd in the NFL. And one of my favorite stats I think is underrated is goal to go percentage. So when you're first and goal, how often do you convert? The Denver Broncos are dead last, 32nd in the NFL, converting only 53% of the time, goal to go percentage. So I even think from the Patriots perspective, the Broncos have been bad in the red zone. You're right. Their passing game hasn't been great. They're more of a run-heavy offense with Russell Wilson, Javonte Williams, and Jaleel McLaughlin, and Perrine over there is more of a passing back. But I think this is really the game where, like, the defense can bend. Don't break, because you have a team that, quite frankly, has been as bad as last year's Patriots team in the red zone, and really the worst in the NFL when it's first and goal. So we go back to, like, playing in the Patriots' hands. I mean, I can see it. I'm not going to predict the Patriots to win this one, but I could say there's a chance. Dumb and Dumber in there.
So I was going to say, so you're telling me there's a chance. It bugs me in a way that is outsized and disproportionate when people screw up that phrase. Now, I know why that is the case, because it's my favorite movie of all time. But when people go, so you're saying there's a chance? No. That is not the quote. It is, you're not telling me there's a chance. I need to get that off my chest. We're almost to Festivus. I need to air some grievances here before the 23rd. You mentioned the passing game, though, because as Belichick unwound, his breakdown of the Broncos, in a sense, broken them down in the Bellustrator and the clips with Zoe and all this different stuff. He's highlighted Courtland Sutton in a way that I don't think I appreciated it as much as I should have, because he said he's as good as any receiver in the league. Courtland Sutton, obviously a Pro Bowler. He's big, he's fast, he's great in a lot of different areas, and is far and away their leading receiver with 58 catches, 770 yards, 10 touchdowns. Now, Jerry Jeudy's, fine, 45 catches, 581 yards, and 1 touchdown. But their next 5 leading receivers are all running backs. And so that, to me, is there's often a make the team play left-handed, double so-and-so, take them out of the game. It just might be that cut and dry with Sutton, because I don't think they're that afraid of Jerry Jeudy, and you can't trust these corners to play one-on-one. Is it as simple as I'm making it, as far as double Sutton almost as often as you can, or at least third down in red zone?
I've been thinking about that a lot, because who starts opposite of Jonathan Jones? Is it Alex Austin? Is it Sean Wade? Will they play Miles Bryant on the outside? Like, I could see them matching up Miles Bryant with Jerry Jeudy and taking John Jones and maybe giving him a little bit of help. But, like, John Jones has been really, really good this year. He's allowed, from my own passing stats, I want to say it's like 39% of his targets to be caught, which for me is number one cornerback type play. He doesn't get the picks like other guys do, but Jonathan Jones has been really good. But I agree. I think you lock up Jonathan Jones and Courtland Sutton, even though there's a massive height disparity. But, like, you know what? Why should I even say that? Because last year the Patriots had Marcus Jones and T. Higgins, which you don't get a bigger mismatch height-wise than that. So, but I think you're onto it, man. If you can shut down Courtland Sutton, you make this team more one-dimensional. again, if you can force the Broncos to try to run the ball on Devon Godchow and the way Christian Barmore is playing, good luck to them. But it will be fascinating to see, one, who starts opposite of Jonathan Jones. Is it Alex Austin? He started last week. He was fine. I had him 0 for 2 in coverage, but a lot of zone-type plays. And I think the Chiefs, they really played more near the line of scrimmage and in the flat. So it'll be a fascinating matchup, and probably not something we've talked about a lot just because of all the other crap that's gone on. But, like, the Patriots' cornerback depth is depleted, at this point, and we're relying on a guy who not a lot of people know about in Alex Austin.
Yeah, it's terrible. My colleague, our mutual friend, Duck Guy, broke that down this week for the Herald. And, he's talking aloud the story in our little office down at Gillette. And I'm like, yeah, it's bad. He keeps going, listing names or how many games have been missed. I'm like, holy smokes, it is that bad, which isn't to say you're not aware of it. It's just one thing to know and then another to look and have it be reminded of. Christian Gonzalez, Jack Jones, I'll put it like this, was your number 3 corner. Like, talent-wise, underscoring talent-wise, starting caliber corner in the NFL. But between him, Gonzalez, J.C. Jackson, Marcus Jones, like all those guys, it's been terrible. So a lot of zone I would expect to. Anything else here that kind of has your attention? Like, I kind of leaned into maybe Tavai or Bentley versus all of these running backs who are getting a lot of targets, and maybe they try to pick on that. But teams have been doing that forever. Like, it's hard to pick something out individually matchup-wise against them, which is crazy because this is Bill Belichick versus Sean Payton. This is one of the best chess matches we have on the schedule.
Well, I think a common theme this year too, right? It's been pass protection and who's going to start for the Patriots. They're down Cole Strange. I have my doubts that we'll ever see Trent Brown again, even though he is practicing this week. I mean, I'm sure they hope Trent Brown starts at left tackle as opposed to Vidarian Lowe, but that's another situation where I don't think Antonio Maffi or Sidy So have been very good in pass coverage this year. I think they've been a bit of a liability. I have them down each for 5 sacks allowed, which is a lot for an interior offensive lineman. And you have a Denver Broncos pass rush that's okay. They're not dynamic, but going back to like Bailey Zappi splits, first half, second half, Zappi has been sacked 10 times in the second half this year compared to 3 in the first half. So 10 times in the second half, 3 sacks allowed on Zappi in the first half. Now, those stats are skewed because he came in a bunch of relief appearance for Mac and only played the second half, for example, the Giants. But like as we saw last year against the Chiefs, when you get a lot of pressure on them, things start to go awry. So for me, I think a big thing this game, as has been every Patriots game this season, is can you protect your quarterback? Can you actually allow him to sit there and go through his appropriate reads, get rid of the ball fast? Because I think if it melts down, and it might melt down because I don't think your offensive line is very good at this point. I think that's a huge thing, again, for the Patriots. If they want Bailey Zappi to play consistent, well, protect him for 4 quarters because so far, at least according to these split stats, that hasn't been the case.
Well, that sounds like a key to the game, which brings us to the 3-2-1 breakdown here. 3 keys, 2 matchups, 1 wild card, and then we'll get out of here because we have to go talk to Bill Belichick this morning. So pass protection, I think it's completely fair. Again, it talks about insulating a backup quarterback, making him comfortable, giving him easy outlets. Like Bill O'Brien did a great job at the start of that Kansas City game. Shallow crosses, slants over the middle, pick routes into the flat, like just easy access, simple read stuff, especially against the blitz, which Kansas City brought a lot. My second key then would just be limiting those Wilson scrambles. Again, so much of their offense in critical situations comes down to him with his legs, and that cuts both ways. Like he's a guy who still believes in his legs and his ability that, I don't want to say it's like taking the keys away from your grandparent when they're getting up there in age and you can't have them driving anymore, but like Russell Wilson probably shouldn't be running around as much as he is. And so if you're able to not only just neutralize that, but swing it in the other direction where he's doing more damage, trying to run into, these pockets that they kind of build around him, a wall, we all hear about that mush rush. That's going to be huge because then either he's rushed and makes a bad throw or perhaps is in double coverage to Sutton downfield. And
how about this too? We haven't even mentioned, which Bill Belichick's favorite part of the game, special teams. The Broncos rank first in punt return average, 16.9, and first in kickoff return average in 28.5, and it's because of Marvin Mims Jr., their second-round pick, who's a phenomenal returner. Arguably the best, statistically, the best returner in the NFL. So for the Patriots, for a team that has, as we all know, they're loaded with core special teamers, can that unit actually step up and play like it for once? Because it has been embarrassing this year for, a team that has Matthew Slater and, Brendan Schooler, Cody Davis. They just have
Chris
so many
Ford.
good, right?
Yeah.
They have so many good core special teamers, man.
Crispin Ellis.
Play like it. this is going to be one of those games you have to play like it. Like, they have very, very good return, very good return man. But on top of that, I want to see Chad Ryland hit a 60-yard field goal. Like, it's high altitude. It's Denver. Chad Ryland has his leg strength. If this was Madden, is probably like 98, 99. It's the accuracy where you dip down into the 70s with him. He needs to work on that stuff. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Chad Ryland, coming off a, very upset over lower deflated ball game, he goes out and boots a 60-yard field goal. So I think special teams is something that's going to come up this game too, because you have to play better. You got to stop committing penalties, and you're actually going to have to stop Marvin Mims Jr. if he gets the ball in his hands.
Can we up this? And I'm going to ask you right now, just because off the top of my head, I don't know the record. I want to say it's 64, maybe 65 yards. Can we get Chad Ryland to kick the NFL's all-time longest field goal in Denver in the perfect follow-up to my balls were flat and I swung and missed and all of this mess and just a nice punctuation? Can we get Chad Ryland the record this Sunday?
100%, man, right? I think you can do it. Honestly, that's why the Patriots drafted him. They love his leg. Like, they love it. Like, Nick Folk isn't here. Essentially,
it's sounding a little weird, Mark. I have to stop. They love his leg. Okay, like, there are websites for people like that we don't need to go here. But it was 66. Justin Tucker hit a 66-yarder in Detroit a couple of years ago. Okay, so Chad Ryland from the Pats Interference Podcast and your friend Mark Daniels and a guy who covered you in high school, Andrew Callahan. Kick, sir, please, a 67-yard field goal in Denver. Give us all a memory, even if it's a loss. We will remember this fondly. Chad Ryland delivered the greatest gift to the Patriots on Christmas Eve, an NFL record in the worst season ever. 67 or longer, please. You co-sign?
Yes, I'm all in. You can ask my colleague Chris Mason. I've been saying it. Chad Ryland's hitting at least a 60-yard field goal in Denver. He has the leg strength. He has the power. The guy has to work on his accuracy. We've all seen it all year. You know what? I just hope they give him the chance. Like,
wait,
you draft for a reason, right?
Let's not make the 67. Let's go 70. Why do we need to stop at 67?
Get some wind. I saw Stephen Gostkowski hit, I think it was a 61-yard field goal in Mexico City. Chad Ryland in Denver, absolutely. 60-plus, he's got it. Let's go. It'd be the best storyline on Christmas Eve ever. Great little Christmas present there under the tree. Chad Ryland, NFL record-breaking kick after Deflategate Part 2. I love it. I'm all in.
Hell yeah. All right, two matchups. I'm going to go with just Bailey Zappi versus Justin Simmons. Justin Simmons is, another Pro Bowl player, keeps together that whole secondary, and I think there's going to be a lot of, the amount of zone that Denver plays, watching Zappi's eyes. And as you talked about, the longer he pats the ball and is looking around, Simmons will be able to jump these throws. He has more interceptions against Patrick Mahomes than anyone. Leads them, I think, in forced fumbles and is close to in picks this year, because I think they're just going to steer clear of Patrick Surtain, which lets Justin Simmons cheat over to the other side. So what matchup do you have?
I'm actually going to go with Javonte Williams versus Devon Godchaux. Javonte Williams has been disappointing this year. He's averaging 3.7 yards per carry, but the Broncos need to run the ball to be efficient. I mean, Godchaux and the Patriots' run defense have just been so elite. Stop them. Don't force Russell Wilson to sit in the pocket and throw. I will take my chances against that. So I think for the Patriots, one of the top things on defense, man, stop the run. Don't just clog the trenches. They've been great. Godchaux, Christian Barmore is having a career year. He's finally putting it all together. That's my number one right now. A guy like Godchaux versus Javonte Williams.
All right, one wild card. Some thought we have not covered. It's game related, but it doesn't have to be football. Whatever you want, man. Let it rip.
I'm interested to see if Bailey Zappi can put together 4 quarters. But I'm interested to see if he falters here, if Bailey Zappi messes up again or just comes out and throws up a stinker. Will we see Mac Jones before the end of the year?
Wow.
I mean, after this, you have Buffalo on the road, and let's not forget, the last time Mac Jones looked like a capable starting quarterback, he was leading the Patriots to a fourth-quarter comeback against the Buffalo Bills. So if Bailey Zappi goes out, throws out a stinker, will we see Mac Jones return against the Buffalo Bills? That's one thing I'll be looking for.
I love it. It's kind of boring, but I'm thinking about the altitude. And not in a way that, the ball's going to fly longer. I'm just thinking fourth quarter, how is it not that these guys are going to be just tired? It's late in the season. You're traveling there. They dealt with it before. But the Patriots have not traveled to Denver since 2017. And you would know better than I, because I've never traveled to Denver for a Patriots game and wasn't covering the team in 2017. Did they do any kind of preparation just for, the altitude? There's less oxygen up there. It's just harder to breathe. It's hard to acclimate to that as I stumble for words here at the end.
Yeah. The only time I've seen them do something like that was prior to Mexico City, where they practiced in Colorado Springs before. The Mexico City altitude was actually, I guess it was much, much more difficult than Denver. The Patriots did that. Their opponents, the Raiders, didn't. And what was fascinating that game was Bill Belichick operated essentially a no-huddle offense, or it was Josh McDaniels. So the Raiders players were so gassed. They had the oxygen masks on the sideline, where the Patriots, who practiced in Colorado the entire week, weren't. It was just Bill Belichick, really chess versus checker in that game. One of my favorite stories of covering this team was like, man, they really did everything they could to put themselves at an advantage and used it against the Chiefs. So, in terms of Denver, I don't think they've done anything like that, but it's legit. It makes people tired. I can remember a story. It was your colleague Doug Kyde was trying to find his way to the field in Mexico City, and was very, very winded because he had to walk so much around that stadium. Yeah, it's no joke. It's no joke. It'll be interesting.
All right. I'm kind of disappointed in how I just could not explain the elevation, but I think you saved it here with a great story. It's something I didn't know. And it was a lame wild card, but we got 2 more games left, and that's just kind of how the season it is. But Mark Daniels making me better. He can make you better as a fan. Follow him on Twitter. Read him at MassLive. Listen to the Eye on Foxboro podcast. You'll also hear Chris Mason and Kara Garigi and a bunch of different guests. Friend, I will see you in about an hour where we get to see – are we going to get Friday Bill today? Is he back? Is he dead? Like, are we just the jovial, amicable? He's back.
Almost Christmas. He's gonna say something about Christmas. I think. All right, he has to. Something about stockings, presents under the tree. It'll happen.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll find out. Thank you, sir.
All right. See you.